The security forces' bloody dispersal of the weeks-long sitting outside the military headquarters in Khartoum drew sharp condemnation from the UN institutions and led to the suspension of Sudan from all AU activities. 6 people died, 27 missing, and nearly 350 homeless. This is the survey record following yesterday's landslides in eastern Uganda. But the authorities fear that this record could increase as search continues. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. African Union has just suspended Sudan, and from a post on Twitter, the institution says that the suspension will remain until the effective establishment of a civilian-led transitional authority, calling the awaited transition the only way to allow Sudan to exit from the current crisis. Thursday's announcement came as the committee met on the crisis of Sudan, a day after new clashes brought the death toll to 108 in 3 days of the ruling military's crackdown. The United Nations announced it was pulling out personnel because of the ongoing violence. The chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, earlier this week strongly condemned the violence in Sudan and urged the country's ruling military council to protect the civilians from further harm. The African Union will convene an emergency meeting on the violence in Sudan, and the UN spokesman says that what they are doing is temporarily relocating some of the staff from Sudan, but there will still be some staff on hand to perform critical functions. The African Union's Peace and Security Council says it has suspended Sudan's participation in all AU activities with immediate effect over the deadly unrest in the country. 6 people died and dozens were missing after heavy rains triggered a series of landslides in eastern Uganda. A statement from the office of Prime Minister Ruhakana Uganda said on Wednesday there are reports of displacement and destruction of property as well as missing persons in the country's mountainous Bududa district. There's a team of Red Cross and local authorities on the ground in a rescue operation, said Julius Mukunguzi, a Prime Minister's office spokesman. The Red Cross said about 50 people were believed to be missing and 150 houses had been destroyed after the mudslides on Tuesday night in the foothills of Mount Elgon, an extinct volcano with 5 major peaks. 6 confirmed dead. These included a 73-year-old woman and several children, according to Ugandan Red Cross. There were multiple landslides, but for now, Red Cross has concentrated in the worst hit areas. The local Red Cross branch volunteers, together with the local police, joined efforts and retrieved the bodies. The affected areas have steep slopes. It is threatening to rain again and accessibility is still a challenge. Spokeswoman Irene Nakazita in a statement. For many residents of Accra, 2019 is the year of returns. Ghanaians from all over the diaspora, coming from London, New York, France, or elsewhere, are coming back in droves, welcomed by families at Koroka International Airport. But last December, the profile of newcomers was different, as many of them had never been on African soil. Black Hollywood stars, the Ghanaian-Australian actor Boris Kodjoe, Ghana-US marketing star Bozoma St. John, former Uber image director, top model Naomi Campbell, and actors and Rosario Dawson came to celebrate Christmas on the motherland. The Year of Return, Ghana 2019, an initiative of the Diaspora Office supported by the President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first African slaves in America, in Jamestown, Virginia. Even though there are no exact figures, UNESCO estimates that between the 16th and the 19th century, about 17 million men, women, and children were forcibly taken on slave ships and sold as slaves. The consequences of the transatlantic slave trade are immense, but this trafficking has essentially propelled the industrialization of Europe and led to Africa's underdevelopment. Tijani Mohamed Band was elected on Tuesday, June 4th, by acclamation to lead the UN institution, an essentially symbolic post and uprising appointment since he was the only candidate running on behalf of Africa. Only a dozen African countries have chaired the UN General Assembly, the first having been Ghana in 1964. But in September, Nigeria, for the second time, will occupy this position, making the African continent proud again. Although the post does not offer much policy space and does not make of the incumbent a key figure in world policy, Nigeria wanted to win this election. Abuja had sent a high-level delegation to New York to support the candidacy of its permanent representative to the United Nations, and the new chairman says to be confident in his ability to lead the General Assembly's deliberations. For if there are many political and development challenges, Tijani Mohammed Band, 61 years, has a double experience. Trained in the United States and Canada, he first led a linear career as a political science professor and administrator in his country and Morocco, before embarking on a diplomatic career, taking on the role of Nigeria's ambassador to the United Nations since 2017. The United States and China have unleashed a merciless trade war that has lasted 2 years. Africa is for the moment a collateral victim, but could pull out of the game. Since the beginning of this conflict, Beijing has imposed tariffs on nearly two-thirds of products from the United States, while the United States has decided to tax more than a half of goods imported from China. This war of economic giants has consequences in Africa already. Analysts say it's only a matter of time before African countries are forced to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea. Africa, increasingly dependent on China, is already experiencing the domino effect of the China-US trade war because the world economy is well calibrated with the continent at the beginning of the chain. Africa supplies the raw materials, the West buys and distributes finished goods. When China goods are taxed more in the United States, they sell less, and the African raw materials used to make them are hit back. There is a lot to learn from the example of made in Ethiopia, even under the Chinese flag. Near Dakar, a special economic zone financed by China is under construction according to a model developed by Beijing 40 years ago and which could apply to the African continent. There are already more than 15,000 Chinese companies. In Algeria, for example, truck manufacturer Changzi Automobile Group opened a joint venture assembly line in May. Some time ago, it was the turn of Beijing Automotive Industry Group in South Africa. A win-win move according to the official terminology often used by Beijing because it allows both to provide Africans with jobs. Since 1972, June 5th marks the World Environment Day initiated by the United Nations. This 2019 edition focuses on air pollution, a major global issue with more than 7 million people killed every year and 9 out of 10 people breathing polluted air. This has to make us think about how we can change our lives and habits to reduce the pollution we produce and breathe. The United Nations is aware that the protection and improvement of the environment is a matter of major importance that affects the well-being of people and economic development around the world and has made June 5th a date for celebrating environment worldwide. This allows us to develop the foundation needed to inform public opinion and give individuals, businesses, and communities a sense of responsibility for protecting and improving the environment. Since it has been launched in 1974, this day has become a worldwide platform for public awareness, widely celebrated around the world. The year's theme is air pollution, which has become a major global issue. Chosen by China as the host of the 2019 World Environment Day celebrations, this year's theme is a call on everyone to think about how one can change their lives by reducing the air pollution produced and breathed on a daily basis and therefore contribute to fight against global warming and its effect on human health and the life of every living creature. Today, 9 out of 10 people in the world are exposed to levels of air pollutants that exceed the World Health Organization's safety levels. We are therefore facing a real crisis that calls for swift and radical action. Prior to the Women's World Cup starting on the 7th of June 2019 in France, there was need for a general rehearsal for the 27 referees and 48 assistants to be on deck for the month. All are women, and as in the case since the 1999 World Cup in the United States, on the agenda, collective training and testing of video arbitration.
The women football has increased the level during the last years, like really much. And it's getting faster and faster. It's more challenging, more competitive all the time. And as referees, we really work hard to keep up the speed. And we really want to be part of this like fascinating sport.
The list of women selected for the competition takes into account several criteria, including match performance, understanding football, and current fitness.
Another very important tool that was given our referees at the Women's World Cup 2019 is the VAR. We made this decision once we were fully confident that VAR could have been positively used by our referees.
But of course, we need the help from the member association, which are our club. And they have to trust their referees to give important games in their important championship. And then, of course, for FIFA, that is the national team, will be much more easy also to take this referee and to continue to officiate what they are doing regularly in a championship.
For this World Cup, 42 nationalities are represented. Japan, one of the cradles of women's football, is the most represented nation with 4 referees, 1 central referee and 3 assistants. The security forces' bloody dispersal of the weeks-long sitting outside the military headquarters in Khartoum drew sharp condemnation from the UN institutions and led to the suspension of Sudan from all AU activities. 6 people died, 27 missing, and nearly 350 homeless. This is the survey record following yesterday's landslides in eastern Uganda. But the authorities fear that this record could increase as search continues. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.